Greetings, my friends. It's good to be talking to you again. As you can no doubt see, I'm speaking to you from home once again. And once again, thank you to those people who have made it possible. This time, I'm also recording some time in advance before you will see this. So I have no way of knowing what will be happening in the world when you hear this, but I know for sure and certain that God will be continuing to journey with us, whatever is happening. Today, I would like to speak to you about the gospel reading, and I thought I would do it in a slightly different way, and I hope you find that helpful. But I'm going to begin in the usual way with a prayer. May the words of our lips and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our God and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, you know, Jesus came to visit our village again the other day. He brought some of his disciples with him. He's done that a few times. That's, I think, because some of his disciples live here. And he calls in every now and then to check up on them, to see how things are going. I'm not one of his disciples. I can't make up my mind. It's a huge commitment that he asks for. But I like to listen to him. He's got some interesting things to say. And he gives me a lot to think about. He called in. He shares a meal. Everyone's always welcome. And then afterwards we sort of gather around, and often he tells a story. He's a great storyteller. Mostly his stories are really funny, but there's always a hidden meaning. And it can be really annoying because he doesn't always explain what the stories mean. Anyway, this one the other night, it's about a landowner. Well, this landowner grows grapes and it's harvest time. So he goes into the village to hire labourers to pick the grapes. Once upon a time, you know, these vineyards were cared for by families, by extended families. There are enough people living on the vineyard to do all the necessary work, but that's changed since the Romans have come. And there's a lot of people around who don't have that sort of regular work now. So they congregate in the marketplace and at the crossroads, the labourers who are looking for a day's work. They need that work to feed their families. So the landowner goes into the market square at 4 o'clock in the morning so that he can get the best choice of the people who are available that day to pick the grapes. And he chooses the best labourers and he negotiates with them for a wage. He agrees to pay them a denarius for a day's work. Now that's the going rate. It's reckoned to be what you need to feed a family for a day. Takes them back to the vineyard and gets them working. Now, apparently he's not very good at working out how much labour he needs, because he's back at the market square at 9 o'clock looking for more labourers. Well, most of the good people have been employed by then, and so he sort of has to take what he can get. And by now, people in the audience are starting to have a bit of a giggle. He's like a lot of the landowners that Jesus talks about. He's not very bright, but he takes what he can get. But for some unknown reason, he offers these people the same rate of pay. He says, I'll pay you a denarius if you come back and work in my vineyard for a day. Well, for what's left of the day anyway. And the level of laughter rises a bit. And of course these people accept. They come back to the vineyard and begin to work. And well, to our amazement, he still hasn't got the right number of people, and he goes back to the market square at around about 5 o'clock. Well, the work day has just about finished by now, and there are still people in the market square. Why are you still standing around, he says. Well, what sort of a dopey question is that? We're standing here, obviously, because no one's employed us. They haven't been employed because, you know, they're the real no-hopers. Well, okay, he says, do you want to work in my vineyard? I'll pay you a denarius. Well, we just can't believe that Jesus would be including this in the story, and the laughter is reaching the rafters by this stage. Of course they do. Back they go to the vineyard and begin to pick the grapes. Now, the landowner might have gotten away with this, except that he comes up with the idea that what he will do is he will pay the 5 o'clockers first. And you can imagine what happens. Everyone's standing around, and those who've worked the whole day or most of the day put up with the heat and the flies, see that the people who've worked very little time get paid a denarius. And they begin to think, oh, well, you know, surely we'll get some sort of a bonus. But when they get to the table, they're paid exactly the same amount, a denarius. Hang on, they say, this isn't fair. And the landowner says to them, what's wrong? This is what I agreed to pay you. I'm not mistreating you. I'm not doing anything wrong by you. I'm paying you what we agreed. It's my money. Why shouldn't I do with it what I choose? Or does it bother you that I'm generous? Well, by now, the room's in an uproar. People are laughing, slapping each other on the back, yelling out at Jesus, suggesting what the landowner ought to do. I think lots of the people didn't really hear what Jesus said next. He said something like, for this is how it will be. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And as I say, with Jesus, he didn't really explain what that was all about. But it stuck in my head. And I couldn't get to sleep. And I kept thinking about it. And I remembered what he said at the beginning of the story. The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner. The kingdom of heaven. Now, I know some people believe in heaven. The idea that there's a life after this life, after death. Some people say that there isn't, that death is the end. But some people believe that there's a life after death. There's a heaven. And I've heard the disciples pray a prayer that Jesus taught them. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. They believe in heaven. Jesus believes in heaven. But they believe that the kingdom will be on earth and in heaven. And this landowner has something to do with heaven. So I wonder, maybe going backwards and forwards to the marketplace wasn't about him being dopey and not being able to work out how many labourers he needed. Maybe he went backwards and forwards to allow everyone who wanted to come to the vineyard to have a chance to come. And maybe he offered each person a denarius because that's what they needed to feed their family for that day. I mean, I've seen these disciples. They share what they have, not only with each other, but with other people. They try to make sure that no one goes without. It's like the other line in their prayer that I've heard. Give us today our daily bread. They don't pray to be rich or powerful. They pray for just enough. And I wonder, is that what's going on in that story? Because I don't know. I just kind of wonder. The first shall be last and the last shall be first. Is that what he said? That's okay, isn't it, for people like us who kind of don't have much? I can't see the Roman government being happy with that. Can't see the priests being happy with that. can't see anyone who's wealthy being happy with that. They're first and they want to stay there. It's a dangerous thing to be talking about. I wonder, does Jesus realise that? I wonder, do the disciples know that it's dangerous? Give us today our daily bread. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Dangerous talk, that's. Amen.